and it was something that was done while broad daylight, nighttime, in the middle of the Christmas season, in the middle of Midtown Manhattan. Probably the ballsiest and most audacious event in New York Mafia history, or Mafia history in America. What can you say about that?
I could say for sure, in my opinion, that's probably the biggest hit that's ever taken place. Al Capone got a reputation for the St. Valentine's Day massacre. But look at it. It was in a garage with a crew of Irish guys. A couple of guys came in, no witnesses, no people, no cops, no nothing. They were dressed as cops and told everybody to get against the wall. So they think they're getting arrested. They all got against the wall, and these cops opened up on them with machine guns. They weren't cops, they were gangsters. But where does that match with the Castellano Hit that was done in front of tens of thousands of people walking around that car? Cops on every single corner. It was the most massive, ballsy hit that ever took place. There was 11 guys on that hit. I planned it. I controlled it. Me and John Gotti sat in the car together. I had a walkie-talkie, talking to the other people who were on the hit, shooters and everybody else. John Gotti was my driver. And even the FBI, when I cooperated, I spoke with them, and they were amazed.
Okay, so by 83, the FBI really started to look at the Gambino family. And then in August of that year, 3 guys from John Gotti's crew, Angelo Ruggiero, John Carneglia, and Gene Gotti, were indicted for heroin trafficking. And Castellano, the boss, didn't want any drug dealing in that family. And that started to cause some problems.
Yeah.
I guess Castellano was planning to kill Gene Gotti and Ruggiero for drug trafficking.
No, I don't think so.
No?
No.
Okay. But I guess at that point, Castellano found out that there was some surveillance tapes of these guys talking about, the Gambino crime family. And that became a big issue.
The tapes in Angelo's house became a tremendous issue. It wasn't surveillance, it was audio. What he talked about was not only drugs, he talked about all the bosses in the commission, all the underbosses, Paul Castellano himself. These tapes that came out of Angelo's house and John's mouth in some of these cases, and that whole crew, affected every boss, underboss, and consigliere in the Mafia.
Yeah.
So these tapes that went to judges, and judges listened to them and gave the government authority to bug his house, his house, his house, his club, his car. Everybody was getting slaughtered with these tapes. And when Paul found out about the tapes, everybody was getting cases. He asked Angelo and John, he wanted those tapes.
If you two never bother with me again in the rest of my life, I ain't giving them tapes. I can't. There's good friends of mine on them tapes. Well, he's the boss, you have to do what he tells you.
That's why I said to you before, you don't understand what the Nostra means that the boss is your boss.
He wanted those tapes, but that would, had he really listened to him, they would have killed Ruggiero as well as John Gotti's brother, right? Allegedly.
I think they were going to kill, I'll be honest with you, I think he was going to kill John, his brothers, and that whole crew. He was going to wipe that whole fucking crew out.
Then he found out his own house was bugged.
Right.
Based on the evidence from Ruggiero tapes.
Yeah, right.
So now it's becoming like a clusterfuck.
Right, he's caught in the middle of all of that, and he's getting pressure from all the other bosses, the commission, everybody, that everybody's getting busted. That commission case, all the bosses, underbosses, consigliers, They're all on that case. And a lot of them tapes and a lot of those things created that.
From that situation, is that when Gotti got the idea to kill Paul Castellano? To protect his brother and also Ruggiero?
I don't think at that point he really gave a shit about Ruggiero, but be honest with you, but I think at that point they knew. They were talking with Neil already. They knew they were in big trouble. So it was run, leave the country, leave the state, leave some run, or kill or be killed.
At one point, Ruggiero actually approached you and said that him and John Gotti were planning on killing Castellano and asked for your support.
Yes.
When they approached you and said that we're going to kill a boss without authorization from the commission, how did you react to it?
Well, I knew, but it wasn't they. Angelo, I had an appointment with Angelo by himself. When I went to him, I knew their problem already, but when he said, Sammy, I need your help. And I said, to do what? We're going to kill Paul. You're going to kill Paul Castellano, the boss of bosses. Yeah, and we need your help. You and John Gotti? Yeah, of course. Then where the fuck is he, bro? Why ain't he here talking to me like you are? He's your boss. He said he's doing something. Oh, this is not a big deal. What's he doing? Shooting dice? While you're asking me to kill the boss of bosses? You're asking me this like a you want to do me a favor and pick me up a quart of milk on the way home for me? This is the boss of bosses you're talking to me about. And John ain't here. I'm going to tell you what I'm going to do, Ange. I'm not going to tell you yes. I'm not going to tell you no. I'm not going to tell anybody we had this conversation. But I'm going straight to Frankie DeCicco's house. I will discuss it with him. And you could tell John, if he thinks he's in trouble and he needs help, he don't need a spokesman. He better come and talk himself. And I left.
You left, but the talk continued. And I guess they couldn't really approach the commission because if they really talked to the other bosses, word would get out and then all hell would break loose. So I guess they try to approach people sort of indirectly with the boss and try to get, I guess they got like 3 out of the 5 families or people in those families to somewhat agree to it, but not really.
That came later. The next meetings he had is with me and Frankie DeCicco.
Mm-hmm.
He had to get us on board. If we weren't on board, he was done. And he knew it. There's no way he could have done this. But he did get me and Frankie on board. He also got Joe Piney on board, who was one of the guys who was in the Pizza Connection case, heavyweight old-timer. We had Joe Piney on board. We had Joe Gallo on board, who was the Goslier, in a sneaky way, but he was on our side, in a sneaky way. He was the real betrayer of Paul.
Mm-hmm.
Couldn't get Neil on it to agree with this.
Right, but then Neil died.
And that's when he's now asking other bosses.
Right, I guess Gotti was upset that Castellano didn't attend Neil.
We all were.
De la Cruz's funeral.
We all were.
Yeah.
This is your underboss. When he was there, when he was asked why he didn't go, he said, there's a lot of cops. I got him on trial. He had no idea. The only thing that was holding him up from being killed was Neil. Because Neil wouldn't agree. So that's what actually kept him alive. So it's ironic that he dies and you don't even go there. This is the guy who kept you alive. We worked on this hit for 8 months and couldn't get a spot for it.
Not his house? Not outside his house?
No, we're not going to kill him at his house. I will refuse to do that.
Because his family was there.
His wife and his kids and people. I'm not doing that. John Gotti said what you said. Who the fuck would do that? It's insane. Manhattan during Christmas is jam-packed. 5:30, all the buildings empty out with the people. Instead of going home, they stay there because their families are going to come, go out to dinner, go Christmas shopping.
But also the streets.
So the streets are cars, people, everything. So I said, that's exactly why we should do it. The confusion, the people, it'll be insane. Nobody will know what the fuck is going on. We may die, but we're going to do this hit. We're going to kill him.
Castellano invited DeChico to a meeting at Spark Steakhouse.
Yeah.
What happens next?
He invited a bunch of guys. You can't just say DeChico. So he's inviting some heavies in the family. God knows what he's going to say because he never said it. But he's not just DeChico because that makes him look like the betrayer, which he was never. The betrayer. We just knew about the meeting, and being Frankie was going to be in there, I decided, stay in there with a gun. Soon as the shooting starts, if they get up, just growl at them, Frankie. Frankie was a super tough guy. Sit the fuck down. They're going to know when you tell them sit down. So he was never a betrayer of Castellano. Because he was closer to Castellano. I was closer to him too, then I'm a betrayer too. So anyway, but that's how the war broke down, and that's how it came down. And I plotted that hit. I'm the guy in the car with a walkie-talkie, with a gun. I made myself a backup shooter. So there's 11 people on there. We're going to kill Castellano. So there's crash car, backup shooters, the 4 guys who are going to shoot. Everybody's in place. What's my position? I'm a backup shooter. I'm in the car and I'm calling the shots. While I'm sitting in the car, it's packed, and my eyes are all over the place. There's 2 fucking cops on the corner, and that's only a couple hundred feet away from me. I says, oh my God, this comes down. These cops are going to pull out their guns and make a move. My job now, the guy who's not pulling the trigger, is to go there and kill them so that the shooters can get away. So when you say, well, you weren't the shooter, my job now is to kill them. And I'm sick. I don't want to kill these 2 cops, but I know what my job is. Thank God, just before they came, they turned around and started walking up the avenue, chatting the other way. So they weren't there. There's actually a cop, from what I know and the government knew, who saw it. And the FBI asked them, why the fuck didn't you pull out your gun? He said, this was so fucking professionally done. I'm not a fucking fool. There must have been backup shooters or what. This guy was 100 feet, maybe 75 feet ahead of me. If he would have pulled out a gun, he was right. I told the FBI he was right. I would have killed him. I would have told John, pull up. I would have jumped out the fucking door and killed him. So he was right, this poor bastard, whoever he was. That again, going back to who's the shooter. Let Alley Boy go shoot him and you think from the background.
But you're not afraid.
Fuck no.
The bullets that ended Big Paul Castellano's life last night may very well have been a payoff for getting into such trouble with the feds. As the reputed head of the crime commission and the godfather of the Gambino family, his appearance in court every day and the preoccupation with his defense were bad for business. Experts say his associates may very well have decided Big Paul was more trouble than he was worth.
The assassination of Paul Castellano has local and federal officials looking for the men who did it and for a motive. Finding either or both extremely difficult given the secrecy of organized crime. We may never know why Castellano was killed.
Big Paulie Castellano's spectacular execution was a grisly piece of street theater that has left authorities with dozens of unanswered questions and apparently few leads. Federal agents and police believe that the 3 hitmen capped off their seamless contract with a slick getaway in a waiting car. One source said that auto had the New Jersey license plate number ABM 43Z, but today police discounted that theory.